Mountaintop experiences. Bright lights, spirits, or maybe ghosts. Cryptic conversations about leaving, and that holy, beloved city of Jerusalem. Clouds, booming voices, fear and amazement, realizations of who Jesus really is, and the feeling of never wanting to leave. Jesus' mountaintop experience could certainly make a good Hollywood film. I think they even made a few films about it. Often these are the type of places we want to meet Jesus. We like to meet Jesus. Those mountaintop-like faith experiences that we've all experienced probably in one time or another. Often this is the type of image we like to think about of Jesus. A Jesus of brilliance, a Jesus who is overwhelmingly powerful, a Jesus who will shine for me on the darkest night, a Jesus who has all the solutions to all my problems. But there's also a second part of our story this morning, a second part that too often doesn't get read or talked about, a part that's found in the brackets today. Meaning it's an optional read. A part of the story that perhaps many of us actually relate to a little bit better. The story that happens in the dark valley below. The story of the helpless father crying out as he loses his son. Please, this is my beloved son. The story of the disciples who desperately try to help, but only end up speechless, embarrassed, and helpless, while those who look on ask, "Where is your Lord now? Why has he left you?" Today is Transfiguration Sunday, the apex and last Sunday of the time after Epiphany. For several weeks now, we've heard different stories that have explored the question of who is Jesus really? In each story we've heard over the last few weeks, a different person has had an epiphany, so to speak, of who Jesus is. And today we hear the very voice of God proclaim, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." This text, which is somewhat clarifying and yet also shrouded in mystery, has become a topic for many, many centuries in the world of theology. What happened on that Mount of Transfiguration? Where is the Mount of Transfiguration? And what does it all mean to you and me? Found in all three of the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we know this story is important to the early church just as it is for us today. And since then, scholars and pastors alike have had various opinions and thoughts about what this story is all about. From a pep talk to Jesus, to the reminder that while we want to stay on those mountaintops, we are also called back into the broken world to be people transformed by God. And while each of these topics and everything between has an interesting conversation behind it to ponder and reveal something new about God, they all seem to forget that second part of the story that is also found in all three Gospels. I suppose pastors and theologians are no different than any of us, or like Peter, we all want to stay on that mountaintop. After all, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us build 3 dwellings and stay. But we cannot stay on that mountaintop because there's also a story of faith, of transformation and transfiguration that happens in that dark valley of pain below. In that valley that so many of us do know and realize what it's like to be. How does the glory on the mountaintop speak to the agony in the valley? What does it all mean that these two experiences, fullness and emptiness, ecstasy and despair, light and shadow, happen on the same night on the very same landscape? Are there not two beloved sons in our story today? I don't pretend to have all the answers for you this morning, but what I do know is that this story has more to it than just bright lights and clouds and the booming voice of God. In this story, Jesus takes the disciples with him, 3 of them. And while they're having an extraordinary experience in the valley, the other 9 find themselves in chaos and panic, in a situation that only becomes more tense, and the healing that was so desperately needed did not come that night. Perhaps this morning, the story is reflecting and telling us about our reality here on earth. What we know so well, but find it hard to say out loud. That not all stories have a happy ending. Sometimes the night feels so long, we wonder if the morning will ever come. That while some of us have extraordinary mountaintop faith experience that form our faith, many of us form and forge our faith in that valley. Perhaps the question our gospel asks us today is, can we speak glory to agony and agony to glory? Can we hold the mountain and the valley in the faithful tension that they need to be held in, denying neither and embracing both? Can we not just speak of it, but actually live the hard work of having compassion and love for one another, so that no one, not the joyous or the anguish, not the broken or the beloved, not the abandoned, are ever forgotten? The morning does come in our story. Jesus comes down from the mountain and heals the desperately sick boy. But let's not forget the suffering that came first. Let's not soften the story this morning, for the suffering was real and deserves honest witness. Many of us today feel that suffering as our world unravels around us. Let us not forget the cry of the Father that we hear in today's version, or in Mark's version, I should say, which is perhaps the most authentic and powerful description of the Christian life we know. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. That is what the Father says. And he does not find that testimony on a mountaintop, but rather in that valley. When we are in the valley, may this be our witness too. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. It's easy to get stuck on the mountaintops, because that's where it's easy to have faith. Because that's where Jesus is powerful and brilliant and shining. The one that seems to have the quick and easy answers. But our God is not a God who stays on the mountaintop. Our God is not a God who's only around when things are good. No, our God is one that dwells among the people, broken and whole, happy and tired, joyous and despair. One that walks through the valleys with us, one whose fullness is shown as Christ cries out on the cross. Friends, Jesus does not stay on the mountain, for Jesus knows that there is evil and pain in this world, and it is not a part of God's plan. Jesus does not stay on that mountain because Jesus calls us to go out into the world and to help those where there is pain and hurt. Jesus still walks with us in our valleys when we are tired, overwhelmed, when we cry out. Jesus still comes off that mountain to heal. Today is the last Sunday in the season of Epiphany. As we leave this mountain of transfiguration, we begin on the journey of Lent, the journey toward Calvary and the mount called Golgotha. And yet we do not go on that journey alone. Christ goes with us, inviting us into the mystery and glory of God, feeling the pain in our lives with us, continuing to heal and offering forgiveness. Not always necessarily having all the answers or even the easy answers, but promising to go with us and be with us through our trials, hearing us when we plead and cry out, appearing not only on mountaintops, but also in valleys. Christ loves us even when we can't find it in ourselves to love ourselves. Christ heals us even when we think we are too broken. Christ is with us on this journey, loves us and heals us as he makes his way to the cross, where he will bear all the pain of the world, where the mount of glory and the valley of agony will become one, in the mysterious and incomprehensible way of the cross, where the glory and love of God will once again be shown in the place that we least expect. Christ goes with us wherever we go. Christ continues to heal and love, even the least among us. May we go forth likewise, and let Christ's love shine out of us wherever we go. Thanks be to God.